you may not know how rude this is, but chiropractors are one of only 3 types of providers who cannot opt out of Medicare.
Genesis Nation, welcome again. And I am very excited to have an expert. I've worked with you in the past. I know many chiropractors have worked with you in the past. Kathy Weidner here. You may know her as Kathy Mills Chang. That was your former name. Now Kathy Weidner, for 15 years of marriage and finally adopting the name.
Yeah.
You may be more familiar with KMC University, and Kathy is our profession's leading expert in compliance, documentation, coding, really what it takes to keep us out of the color orange. And because that's a reality. The mistakes that we can make can be very, very financially costly, very, very legally costly, just all from that perspective. So, if you haven't heard of KMC University, click on the links below in this interview and take a look at all the offerings and, take advantage. And for myself, coding, compliance, documentation, like I don't like those things. I want to work with people and spines and bodies and humans. However, I have to, reach this level of like leveling up and growing up and being mature enough to say, if I don't take care of this stuff, I'm not running the best business I can, and the patients are suffering. So,
and it's so interesting to me because, some of the most on purpose and congruent chiropractors in their philosophy and their treatment are the opposite in their business. And I think when we find that, you're very kind to say all those nice things, but it's not that hard. It really, truly is not. And I know so many people, not just you, say, I don't like that stuff. And I agree, because I don't always like it either. But
well,
the good news
I'm
is
hoping
that
this
there's
can
an
be
easy way.
I want this to be a healing session for me and everybody else watching, so that I don't have to put my head in the sand, and nobody
Gotcha.
else out there has to put their head in the sand when it comes to this, because if it is this easy and simple. So let's start with what are the major mistakes that chiropractors are making? Like, if you could top 3 it, what are we doing wrong that you see that are just glaringly obvious?
The number one mistake that we see is chiropractors thinking that they do not have to enroll in Medicare Part B and that they can just see those patients for cash, or that they can have them sign an ABN, which of course, if you're not enrolled, the ABN is just a piece of paper, and then provide them a super bill, or just tell them, I don't take Medicare. The joint does that. And so I think a lot of people see that happening and think it's okay. And it isn't. It is absolutely not okay. And I would say adjacent to that is the way that chiropractors deal with Medicare Part C or Advantage plans. Right now, more than 60% of Medicare patients are choosing Medicare Advantage Part C replacement plans. And I think that there's been a lot of bad information that's been shared. And so some doctors will think that they have to bill that if they're not involved in the plans. Certainly our cash-based brothers and sisters out there who say, no, I think I have to do this. You don't. There are many different rules that apply to Part C. And I think that I could put the cherry on top of all of this as the third item, which essentially is that doctors ask their friends about what the particular right answer is, instead of actually trying to find it out from an expert, and or the Google search, which is even worse.
Dr. Google.
Yeah, exactly. And even from the standpoint of we had a little joke at Parker with a t-shirt that we made like that, and the question was, what is the answer to this modifier question? And the truth is, nobody would know the answer to that until they asked you 4 more questions, because there are so many particular things. Now, that's not hard. That's just going to the right source, essentially. Yeah. I'm so sorry. Do we need to start over?
No, let's just roll.
Okay.
This is just life. You tell me can't walk through anymore.
Okay, that's fine.
It's all good. I don't even care about editing out. These are very good. Like, I'm so glad you started with Medicare, because that's a misconception across the board. I'm going to be cash. I don't want to deal with Medicare.
Yeah.
Throw it out. However, so the first piece was Medicare Part B. Second one was Medicare C. I'm going to jump back into these in a second. The third one is don't ask Google or a friend, ask an expert. So let's jump back to that first piece, Medicare B.
Yes.
Tell me
Yes.
about, and without giving away all of your secret sauce, you know,
It's all
and I know
public
you're,
domain.
yes. All right, good. You're here for the collective, and I know that.
Yes.
So, Medicare B, so no matter what, if you're practicing in the United States of America, you need to enroll in Medicare B. Is that the bottom line?
No.
Oh, cool.
So here's the answer to that. In order to treat a Medicare Part B patient, you must be enrolled so that you are capable of submitting their bill. And so there is the option of simply turning away all Medicare patients. Nobody says you have to be enrolled. I think that's idiotic, however. That's crazy.
Because they're
Why?
humans, they
Because
need it, they have families. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
But the second reason is more than 10,000 people a day are aging into Medicare, including your own patients. So do you
Yes.
really want to have that happen and you've got to send them elsewhere? Of course not.
No.
So those are all great reasons, right? So you will hear from some people, even with attorney after their name, who will say, oh, but you could treat them and just do manual therapy, or you could do something else. And I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV, but I disagree with that completely because there is what's called mandatory billing. Now, you may not know how rude this is, but chiropractors are one of only 3 types of providers who cannot opt out of Medicare. Chiropractors, PTs, and OTs in independent practice is the story there. So how ridiculous is that, first of all? That is so it's so out of parody, it's not even funny.
Right.
But people are trying to get that solved at the highest levels of our profession.
Political levels, yeah.
Yeah, but let me tell you, I worked for the ACA in 1999 and 2000, and we were doing it then. And what is it? 2024? That's ridiculous.
That's a
And
long battle.
you know what the reason is, they say? Well, we can't ask for a full scope at the same time we're saying we want to opt out. You know what? Baloney. You certainly can. That's called free agency.
Well,
You should have the right to do that.
negotiating power. Yeah, it's like we got to get
course.
a different lobbyist
That's right.
fighting
So
for us.
if you want to, I feel like you should enroll in Part B, not hard. If you're cash based, let's have you be non-participating, which means that just like all the rest of your practice, patients will pay across the front counter. So that means they pay you the limiting fee at the time of service. Everything else you do, your exams, your x-rays, your therapies, anything else, you're receiving your full fee for, of course. But your only obligation is follow the rules, document like you should, which is not that hard, and then submit the bill on their behalf. Period. That's all that has to be done. And follow the rules of medical necessity, discharge when they're no longer active, patient pays full fee for maintenance care, no problem. It's not difficult to do these basic things.
You're making I literally you're making me enjoy this. So thank you.
Awesome. That's great.
The simplicity really is that simple. So where does the ABN fit in?
So an ABN, by its rule, is only to be signed when a patient is no longer receiving what is called an otherwise covered service. So for chiropractors, the only otherwise covered service we have are the 3 spinal adjustment codes. That's it.
That's it.
So when that becomes maintenance by definition, and the maintenance definition in Medicare is a definition of both supportive care and wellness care in the way it's defined. I used to be able to do it off the top of my head and quote it, but that's when it is no longer, it's a covered service that may not be covered today because the provider said we're no longer with a functional deficit, a complaint, a finding, etc. Patient is on maintenance at that point, paying your actual fee with no problem, right? That's okay. And
Yeah.
and that's for the ABN. It's another mistake we see a lot is that doctors will think that that's supposed to be signed on visit one for the exam and the x-rays. That's not what it is at all.
Right,
That's a
because they don't cover it.
voluntary
They don't,
ABN.
yeah, they don't cover it. So it doesn't matter. What's really important, I think, like we pull the layers beyond this. And I think what becomes important is that regardless of your philosophical tenets and where you stand, subluxation based, whatever that is, these are rules that you must follow regardless of if you're going to practice in the United States. So it doesn't
Very,
matter. It's like you got to
very
play by
simple.
these rules. It's like a rule. It's like you got to
And no,
stop at the red light. You can
yep,
go at the green light. That is a rule to create order in which the system we participate in. So
that is correct. And interestingly, the rules are also very similar, even in commercial payers. If you deal with United Healthcare or Aetna, for example, they have a rule around what are called contiguous body regions. And the contiguous body region means that you can't adjust me in my thoracic spine and provide manual therapy in my low back because they're contiguous.
mm,
If you were to provide manual therapy in my neck and you are adjusting the three regions below the belt, they're not contiguous. So that's okay. And then providers still don't understand that rule. So we call it medical review policy. And I would say if we're going to do 3.1 mistake, team members don't understand and providers don't understand the rules of benefit verification. So we must verify asking very specific questions, not just what we can find out in eligibility. That's baloney. Find that information out. Then part two is we must know from the payer's medical review policy that we're about to bill, what are their rules of the game? What modifiers do they need? There's people now, half, that require this 97 modifier on any physiotherapy type service.
mm,
Half of the other ones don't. So our help desk gets questions like, I submitted this bill, they won't pay it, they're telling me it's a modifier, I don't know what to do. We can take them right to the medical review policy and show them where it said that, but now they're making mistakes, costing themselves money
yeah,
because they just didn't do it right in the first place. So
yep,
verification has to be both of those pieces for all of these reasons. And they all blend into the same number three, which is just not managing your business the way, I would never try to do my own taxes. I'd be an
right.
idiot, right? I have people that know that. I consult with them and do my best, but I know that's their game. This is my game. And I know how to do this game like back of my hand.
And
So, so that's
it makes me
great.
think like looking at an org chart. Like if you don't have an org chart, well, I'll do a Genesis Nation piece on that. But having an org chart, where
Yeah.
your lines of communication are,
Yes.
how to work up. Even if you're an office of one, creating an org chart. Those of you who are students and new out there, like create an org chart early so you can start having to structure your business. But part of that needs to be legal / compliance.
Yes.
Like
It
have an
does.
attorney that you can speak to, have a compliance company that you can speak to. I
Yes.
definitely want to dive into like how to get access to your company in
Sure.
when we close this up. But
Yeah.
so Medicare Part C, tell me about that.
Yes. So essentially, the government decided, just to back up one quick second. So Part B are managed by contractors who won the bid.
Mm,
Like Boeing won a bid for F-15s, right?
yeah.
So we're divided into jurisdictions in the United States. I think there are 13. And depending on where you are, a payer who wants to work in Medicare land bids on having that contract for Part B.
Mm,
It's different for Part A, which is hospital, and it's different for durable medical equipment and Medicare and things like
yeah.
that. So, of these 13, every single one is wholly owned by a subsidiary of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Oh
I know, right?
my
Give me
God.
a break.
It's like follow
Give
the
me a
dollars,
break.
right? Like all you got to
I
do is follow where the
know.
money goes and you get the truth.
That's
Like,
right.
holy moly, thank you for pulling
That's
that
right.
veil out.
I know. It
Yeah.
aggravates me. That's why.
Wait, so
For,
all 13 of those contractors, so to speak, people, the Boeings and the like, I get that analogy. Um, break up Medicare Part B. They're controlling it, but they are all some kind of subsidiary of Blue Cross Blue Shield. Interesting.
Yes. In its own world, in some way, they have a Blue Cross Blue Shield family there. So for Part B, which is all the physician services, patients who are of Medicare age, I don't remember how many years ago this happened, but what they did is open it up so that Aetna, Cigna, Humana, all the rest of them, right, Blue Cross, could decide to offer Medicare benefits, essentially from a commercial standpoint. I always use this example for myself. For myself and my employees, we have Kaiser Permanente for our insurance here in Colorado. And when I turned 65, or my husband is a year older than me, he'll turn 65 first, or whatever age we're going to do this at, there's no question that we will stay with Kaiser as our Medicare Part C. I know the system. I know how to advocate for myself in the system. B, we're in our early
wait, because I want to make sure that my brain is getting this so that if everyone else is confused as well. So with Part A, as you turn 65, you're saying, you and your husband, Part A, you're like, okay, hospitalization, I'm going to stick with Medicare.
No. So what Part C does is let's talk about the four kinds of Medicare coverage. Part A is all hospital, comprehensive outpatient facilities, things like that. This is a gift of citizenship. This is what you're gifted at 65. It doesn't really cost money to the system. B is for your physician services. You pay a premium for that as a senior. C is, let's hold C for a minute, and D is the prescription drug stuff that, you know, people started having to do with the whole donut hole and all of that. What Part C does is you don't have A, you don't have B, and you don't have D. Everything is done through this commercial payer who takes care of all of it for you.
Okay.
So for me, I'm already with that commercial payer.
That's an option. So that C is an option for you to purchase.
Right. I can do A, B, D over here, or I can do C and get it all under one roof.
Okay, got it. And are those under C, is that the stuff that we see with Advantage plans and through other carriers and stuff like that, where they say, hey, I'm basically going to take care of your Medicare benefits? I've seen that with Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross Blue Shield.
All of them.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's a patient choice.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you an example of why I would do it. You know, we're in our early 60s, and we're, you know, as we approach that every year as just commercial users, our premiums go up every year because it's based on age, whether you're healthy or not. And for my husband and I, it's almost $2,000 a month for our insurance premium with a high deductible, et cetera. When he turns, which he'll turn first, it'll probably, his portion will go down to like $180. And for the same exact coverage, in fact, better coverage. I have a knee situation going on, and they wanted to, my doctor's like, you're not 65, are you? I'm like, no, I'm not. Thank you very much. And he said, well, if you were, I could send you out because it's a benefit for Medicare, but we don't offer it. So we have to send out for it. I could have had prelotherapy on my knee if covered under my plan, but I could at Medicare age. So we would most certainly do that because it's a huge savings. And when I mean I can advocate for myself, I know how to get healthcare because I'm in this industry 41 years, right? So I know how to get healthcare. Some people don't, and they get the runaround and they get all those kinds of things. But the advantage here of being all under one roof is there are chiropractors who choose to be in the plan. Let's say I'm in Aetna's commercial plan, PPO, and HMO. Maybe I'm in those plans as a doctor. Excuse me. I would probably automatically be added into their Part C plans as a provider.
Okay.
I might choose to say, you know what, I'm not in a Part C plan. I don't want to be a part of those, and I am out of network. Now, the mistake the doctors make is they think they have to bill it because they know they have to bill Part B. But in fact, they really don't, because I like to explain it as I teach around the country that what that becomes is you putting yourself between your patient and their payer in the middle. And what we want when we're out of network with any plan, Medicare or otherwise, when we are in Part C, in or out, is if you really want to be someone that has a simple practice, take care of humans, do the things you want to do, and you're out of all of these things, be in Part B because you have to. That's simple, as we talked about. But don't put yourself between the patient and the payer, because that's going to create problems for you if you don't want that kind of practice. If you want to bill for your patients and wait to be paid, bully for you. I admire that. That's every doctor I've worked for. That's how we operated. But the question becomes, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. So I don't want to do that, so I'm just not going to do it. But the rules say I have to do it.
Yeah,
Or
that's just
I don't understand the rules, and therefore I'm making mistakes. So get the rundown. Can
well,
you
and
imagine how many?
that leads us into mistake number 3, which is like find the experts of, and this is not intended, this is more just to deliver value for our clients.
Sure.
And I think you are valuable for our profession. So
Thank
how
you.
to, and this is not just a commercial, but like, what does it look like to work with KMC University? You can go to a seminar. Can you do monthly? Because if I were, if I were still in practice, I would want to say, I want like a monthly advising. That's what I need help
Yes.
with. I like, because I know I'm going to run into these issues all the time.
We make it very simple, honestly. I have what is the largest online learning management system in our profession on all of these topics. It is courses and quick answers and resources and forms and training videos. We offer a full 24-hour clinical CA training that is the training necessary for the triple CA certification, the national one. We have CA training. We sort of have this whole thing there. That's the central hub of the wheel, I would say, along with my certified specialists. All of us are certified, triple certified in some cases, on these things: coding, compliance, auditing, etc. So our probably most popular membership is the membership that includes access to our online materials. I would say 75% of them, an email and a phone help desk that you can ask any question to. Right. We do a CE credit webinar per month. And if you're in one of the 40 states that allows for that, we pay for an hour of CE. And then should you need something else, sometimes you need more than just what the help desk is. It's complicated. You need us to look at some denials and help you figure it out. We offer 30-minute, 1-hour consultations to get on and dig in. One of my team constantly is going in and helping people set up their fee schedule in their computer, things that you would think other people would do for you, and they don't, just because we have the background. That membership is as low as $99 a month.
That's brilliant. Awesome.
Yeah.
And what about, sorry, go ahead.
That's if you commit to a year, but if you are risk averse in some way of, I don't want to be committed that long, it's $149 a month, and you can do it every 3 months at a time. And I think what's important to know is that there's a lot of people that come and just do that. It's inexpensive, it's great. But what we found out is they actually need a lot more. And that's the step up into working one-on-one with a specialist. And even that is very, very affordable. And we just bill it by how many hours you need in a month. And it's very, very straightforward and simple.
It's like it's unfortunately and fortunately, like, thank you for doing this for 40 years. It's like you always have to have the compliance and legal perspective in your practice. If you don't, you're going to end up in trouble. This, I'm putting this in the compliance bucket, just like the legal bucket. Like, you have to have that on your team.
You do.
There was something that came up that I lost my brain on it, so I apologize.
No, I was going to add one more quick thing here.
Yeah.
We behave very much like you do in your offices, where we have a proven process. Our proven process is essentially that we discover, recommend, train, implement, and sustain. That's not different than what you all do. So what we like to say is, we don't even know if we can help you. so we start with a discovery. Like, what does that look like? It never costs anything to have a discovery assessment with one of our team. But if you need a little bit more, we have analysis services. Maybe you're not sure what your documentation looks like. You can send us one chart. It's very affordable. Maybe you haven't looked at your fees or your discounts in years. And that's another big mistake doctors make, is illegal discounts. We do a fee analysis. Maybe you need to know, how am I really doing? We have a practice billing profile where we collect 3 years worth of statistics, a year's worth of code usage, and have a questionnaire and look at your fees. And we can tell you, here's where you're leaving money on the table. You're making these mistakes. Our average is finding $15,000 when someone pays literally $249 for that. So wow. It's a real high ROI item.
Awesome. Yeah.
And we can also say, here's where you're at risk. And if I can see this by pulling your coding, you're 95% 98941, for example, gigantic risk, gigantic red flag, because it tells me 3 or 4 things. A, you're a full spine adjuster and you think you can bill all of it, no matter, even if the patient has one complaint. You're not sure how to manage that.
Red flag.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's good red flags and there's bad red flags. And this billing profile is amazing because it provides all of that with the report of findings and all the data that we give back. But that's what I love, is go and have an exam and x-rays. See if you're a good candidate for chiropractic. Have an analysis services. See if you even need to be talking to us. Right. We try to make that easy, just as doctors do.
Love it. Love it. It seems like your process is even easier. So the question that was in my brain came back. A lot of practices now are integrated, with medical practitioners, NPs, PAs, PTs, chiropractors with PT privileges. Have you adapted, obviously, over the last, several decades? Do you consult on those compliance issues as well?
100%. When I was living and working in New York from 94 to 99, all those years ago, I worked for the largest chiropractic group practice in the state. And I was their sort of practice administrator, central billing person. And during the time we were there, we converted all 12 of those offices to multidisciplinary. And so I sort of learned it from the ground up, if you will, because we just kind of were like, let's see how this works. And that was a huge learning experience. And I say this with all the love in my heart, but that practice has a doctor in prison right now. And it's horrifying to me. We were good friends. And part of the reason is they went this way instead of doing it the correct way. So you mentioned earlier that people don't look good in orange. The truth is, there is a very minute percentage of chiropractors who will go to jail, lose their license. And unfortunately, some of my colleagues that teach in the profession are very much about scare tactics. And the reality is, it takes one hell of a lot for you to wind up there. It really does. But that doesn't mean that what's not going to happen is what we deal with. Really, probably on an average week, we get one, at least, a doctor that got a recoupment request for tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. That may be worse than losing your license or going to jail if you don't have it.
Right. I had to stroke a check to Aetna when I first started practicing for $25,000. And that was early on in practice. That was painful. And I recovered. The most important thing I can tell doctors is never stroke a check without talking to somebody. Well, because I did.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Sorry.
but you can't imagine the people that call and go, "Oh, it scared the crap out of me, so I just send them the money." No,
bad idea. Make the phone call first.
We can always get that number down because it was probably extrapolation.
Call KMC.
Please.
KMCU, call KMCU. So that's a great way to wrap us up. And this was an awesome overall summary. And Genesis Nation, if you are not enlisting KMC University and at least participating and watching these webinars and making sure you catch Kathy when she's at either FCA or Parker or wherever she is, go to her booth, find her online, and she's very easy to find. And we'll put all the links below. I'm honored. I love your approach, and I love your just direct and helping the profession the way you do. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.